Hello YouTube, the Real Creole is here, and today we're going to be cooking steak. What kind of steak? Well, specifically this chuck roast. Take a look at this guy. It's amazing. Look at the marbleization. Look at the size of it. This is just over 2.5 pounds. You can see I got a pretty decent price on it at one of my local grocery stores, and I've done this before and it turns out delicious. A lot of flavor. Notice how thick it is. That's about 1 inch thick, a little bit more than 1 inch. It's delicious. Great marbleization. We're going to do it very simple, and we're going to reverse sear it. The key to doing this is reverse sear. And also, I don't know if you've seen these, you probably have. These are bacon wrapped fillets. Now, is this a filet mignon? No. It's important to keep that in mind. However, they still taste good. They're wrapped in bacon, and you need to be mindful of these. Notice, look at all these ingredients. Can you see all of that? It's got water, it's got salt, it's got a bunch of other stuff. It's been mechanically tenderized, which means if you unwrap this thing, this is all going to fall apart because they've just taken bits and pieces and they've kind of thrown it together. That's why you can get it at such an inexpensive price. I think this was about $5 for the two of them. Still, we're going to cook it anyway. So, how we're going to do this? I already said reverse sear, and we're going to have 2 simple seasonings. Look at this. Salt, Himalayan pink salt to be exact, and just some pepper. So I'm going to grind that up, and we're going to put it on the grill. Now, one thing I want you to notice rather, is that this meat has been sitting out at room temperature for a little bit. I personally like my steaks more medium to medium well. Now, I hear some of you out there screaming, no, the steak should be rare, the steak should be rare. Well, I bought this steak. I'm going to cook this steak. I'm going to eat the steak. So I'm going to do it the way I like doing it. And I happen to like it medium to medium well. It's a lot easier to get to the internal temperature that I want when I start out with a steak that's not so cold. My refrigerator is about 40 degrees. Now take a look. Let's see what temperature the steak is now that I've had it sitting out for a bit. Okay guys, take a look at this. Our thermometer is reading about 64 degrees internal temperature for this large chuck roast. Now inside my house right now, the same thermometer was reading about 78, 79 degrees. So we're talking about a 15 degree temperature difference here versus a much larger difference. So remember, the refrigerator is at 40. This is currently at 64, and it's only about 15 degrees difference from the surface of this steak. So we're not having to do a whole lot of work. I like my steaks at about 145 degrees final temperature. That gives me about medium inside, which is still tender, still delicious in my opinion. So as you can see, we're not going to have to cook this very long. I've already got the primo going. I've already got lump in it. It's getting nice and hot. So let's go outside right after we season this up. Okay, if you remember, I said we're just going to do this really simply. I already have, let's see if you can see that, yeah, just some Morton's pepper that I'm going to actually grind, and the salt. Now you don't have to go crazy on this because there's so much delicious flavor already in the meat. Just get yourself a good coating of that with your pepper. Of course, we're going to do all sides. Okay, we did that. Now don't go crazy with the salt. Each salt shaker is a little different, each pepper shaker is a little different. Do what works for you. So we'll get a little extra on that. Hopefully you can see that. Looks good to me. Maybe just a tiny little bit more over here. You want to try and get it even. Just going to rub that just a little bit, pat on it. As you can see, I left my temperature probe in, no big deal. There. And oh, look at this guy. How can you be a vegetarian looking at something so beautiful? I don't suppose I have any vegetarian subscribers anyway. So, I don't think I offended any of you. If I did, I apologize. even though I'm not sorry. Good coat of pepper on that guy. It's time for the salt. Now the salt's just a little fancy. Himalayan pink sea salt. My wife picks this up. She's the one with the truly refined palate. I just enjoy cooking on the grill. Alright, got the last little remnants of that. We'll pat on it, we'll rub it in a little bit. As I move this around, we'll get a little bit on the sides also. That'll be fine. Again, for these guys, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to put them on as is. They already have seasoning on them. I had a situation where I bought meat, ribs to be specific, and it turns out they're already sitting in a saltwater solution. I seasoned them up anyway because I didn't read the package properly, and it turns out they were too salty. So a delicious rack of ribs, looked beautiful, was almost inedible. Almost. We ate it anyway. But almost inedible because I didn't look at the package and notice that it was already seasoned. I wasn't expecting my ribs to already have a bunch of salt on them. So watch out whenever you buy. Try to avoid that whenever possible. So these are going to go on as well. Let's head outside. Alright, so now we're outside. Clearly here with the Primo. Our temperature is about 300, 350, but oddly enough, it's really not going to make too much of a difference for this particular cook. Take a look. We have the Primo set up for two-stage cooking. I have this grill turned down. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I got the first grill turned down so it'll be closer to the fire, closer to the coals when it's time to sear. Take a look at this. See how the feet are up on the left and they're down on the right. So you got about maybe an inch, 2-inch height difference, which helps a little bit. But I'll come off the tripod a little bit. Forgive the shaky cam, please. And notice that I only really put, let's see if you can see that. I only really put coals on one side. Back up a little. Sorry about the shaky cam, guys. Only put coals on one side, and believe it or not, you'll get a noticeable temperature difference. I've measured this once before, and I got about a 100-degree temperature difference from the left side to the right side. Clearly, the left side is going to be hotter. Now, they make a firebox divider, and I actually have it. It's a nice, thick piece of metal that really blocks it, but honestly, with this oval design, you really don't need it. So you can see a little bit of flare up. We're going to close the lid, and we're going to put our meat on. So what I'm going to do is a reverse sear. I'm going to put the meat on the right side and let it cook to within about 10 degrees of our target temperature. For us, that'll be about 130, 135 for that big chuck roast. And then I'll move it over here. I'm going to sear it, get a nice caramelization. For some of you, you may be completely familiar with this. This is called the Finney method. And some people call it the reverse sear. It's the same concept that you get when you sous vide something. You cook it to the internal temperature that you want at a low temperature, and then you sear it to get that nice color, caramelization for presentation, for just to really cap it off at the end. A little contrary to what we used to do with searing it first and then cooking it later. But science and experience has now told us that the reverse sear is clearly the way to go. Stay tuned. Okay, time to put the meat on. When you work with a really large piece of meat, you may find that your tongs are inadequate. So it's best to have the meat closer to the grill while it's still on the plate whenever possible. Now you don't get as loud of a searing sound as you would otherwise, but I want to kind of back this up a little bit because again we're going for indirect. I want to keep it away from the heat. You'll notice that I stuck a toothpick in these guys so the bacon doesn't come off. It makes it a little easier. I'll sit them right there. Man, that's looking about picture perfect. So again, when we're doing steak, it's all about internal temperature. You don't have to be some sort of mystic ninja and just look at this stuff by sight. Each cook is a little bit different. Your thermometer is one of the best tools to help you make delicious food. Don't be afraid to use it. There's no shame in it. It's a great idea. So already we're at about 100 degrees on that. We want it 135, and then we're going to sear it. So this is going to go relatively quick. Close down the lid. I got a piece of wood in there. I'm surrounded by oak trees. I think many of you know that, but I want to make sure that I get the additional flavor that the smoke gives me as well. So even though we're not smoking, I still put a piece of wood or two in there just to give it a little bit of extra aroma. Much of it's cooked off already, so you don't see a lot of the smoke, which is fine, but the flavor will still be there. Alright guys, here we go. We're at about 136 on this big chuck steak, chuck roast, depending on how you want to look at it. And I'm going to sear it. I also have the smaller fillets that are probably maybe 5 to 10 degrees hotter. No big deal. I'm going to sear them now also. Oh, look at that color. Just take a minute to admire this. Let me zoom in a little bit. Look how delicious that looks. Look at the texture. Look at the color. It's amazing. Can you tell I'm excited? Can you tell I'm hungry? I bet you can. So right over here we have the direct heat. We have the coals. So it's time to sear it. I want to get this bacon rendered. Move that over a bit. And then finally, our friend here, the chuck steak. I'll go ahead and, if I can get a hold of it, it's so tender. Put that right there. I'm gonna let it go for a couple minutes. Then we're gonna flip it, and it's gonna be done. All right. Oh yeah. Now we just give it a flip. I don't know if you can start to see the color on this or not, but these are looking amazing. The bacon's looking the way I want it to look. Now, flipping this is gonna be a bit of a challenge. We can still do it. Oh my goodness, look at that. Are you seeing this? Amazing. Woo! And finally, we are coming off the grill. Take a look. Okay, you see that? Look at the color. Wish you could smell this. Those two guys on the side, and of course our star, the main attraction, chuck steak, is coming off. Look how beautiful this is. If I can even make room. Are you seeing this? Position it properly. How's that? It's hot. That's how that is. Now, taking this off, what do? Do we cut right into it? No, absolutely not. We let it rest. 10-15 minutes at least. We let it rest. We're going to cover it lightly with some foil. We're going to let it rest. Now you say, we've talked about this I think before, but for those of you who may be unaware, you say, well, Creophas, my steak's going to get cold. No, it won't. It'll actually get hotter. Right now we're at 149 degrees, which is more than what I was shooting for, but we're within the margin of error. This grill, or this thermometer rather, is about 4 or 5 degrees off. No big deal. 145, that's still about where I want it. 149, but you'll notice the temperature is going to go up, not down. Try it out for yourself. And then guess what we're going to do, guys? It's dinner time. Oh, see the juices starting to come out. You don't want to cut into that. You want those juices. You want more of those juices in. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed seeing me cook this as much as I enjoyed cooking it and smelling it. Stick around. We'll have more videos for you later. Thanks, guys. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe.